is Sportscasters Anonymous, a weekly podcast about sports, all sports, MLB, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, collegiate football, and collegiate basketball. But there's more. We'll even talk about sports video games, sports movies. It's all here. You're listening to Sportscasters Anonymous on the Random Chatter Network, broadcasting to the globe from Jacksonville, Florida. This is Don and Chip.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Sportscasters Anonymous. My name is Don. He's Chip. This is episode number 18, recorded on August 16th, 2020. We've got more amazing news. We are pumped up and full of energy, a whole bunch of sports to cover. And my man Chip got some rest this week. So Chip, man, how's it going?
I'm good. I actually got a little bit more rest, but it's finals week for me. So I got a ton of stuff that I need to get done. So plus the Flyers are playing in T-minus 35 minutes. So we're going to, try to make this go short but sweet. I'm not checking the game, so I shouldn't be distracted. But we're going to start out with how to contact us. So you can contact us at our email. Mine is chip@randomchatter.com. And you can contact Don at his email, which is don@randomchatter.com. You can find us on Twitter at SportcastAnon, ANON. You can join our Discord channel under Random Chatter, where there's sports and pop culture talk. You can support us on Patreon under Random Chatter. And you can always buy our stuff at randomchatter.com/store.
Awesome. And before we proceed, I want to throw a couple things out there. First of all, again, to our friends of the show, Des Creates, DEZ Creates.com. Does a lot of amazing artwork. We'll do custom commissions for you. Drop her a line. Go check out her site, see what she has to offer. And again, to our friend Hydrox22, he can be found on twitch.tv/Hydrox, HYDROX, and the number 22. And Chip, before we continue, you and I talked about this off-air before we went on live. This is episode number 18. Episode number 25, 7 weeks away. That will be just about a half-year point, believe it or not, since we've done this. So we are working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, Chip and I have, with the show and ways to expand the show and different ideas. We are planning on and working out the details for an amazing special episode number 25. We might leak a few teasers out there between now and then, but prepare for it. It's going to be an amazing show. It's going to be a special show, and we hope everybody likes that show once we get to it. But with 7 weeks to go, we've got a lot of other work to do in the meantime. So Chip, my man, NFL updates for this week. What are we talking about?
So the first thing I got on the list is, I know we talked about it last week, how they were thinking of doing like a virtual fan thing across stadium. I found an article this week that ESPN posted basically saying there's no decision yet. Like, I have no idea what the NFL is contemplating at this point, because majority of the stadiums are still projecting to have fans. Or there's no decision. And they're basically letting the state's government kind of decide whether they're going to have fans. Some are like, nope, we're not having any fans. Some are like, we're going to have limited capacity of 7,000 to 10,000 people. It's super insane how, like, we're less than a month away, and
yep,
they still haven't decided whether they're going to have fans in there. Like, how do you buy a ticket and realize, like, they're going to be like the day before, sorry, we're having no fans here. Like, we'll just refund your money. Like, I feel like that would be worse than
having a plan outright.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just, I'm going through it and I'm like, it's so haphazardly put together. Like, you look at the teams that are, and I know that not all the teams are in New York, but you look at the New York teams.
There's
even
only
like
one, that's Buffalo.
I know you keep reiterating that, but I mean like the New York Giants and the Jets. Like, the Giants have come, like, the Jets come out and say, like, hey, we're not having no fans, but then the Giants are like, we're having a limited capacity. Like, it is literally makes no sense
because
whatsoever.
It's the same stadium. The same place.
It's the same exact stadium. It makes absolutely no sense. And I'm like just going through it, and it's like you have like same conferences where it's like one team's like, we're having no fans, the other team's like, we're gonna have like 15,000 fans, and we're requiring masks, and everybody's gonna be, separated. Like, I was thinking about it today when I was watching some of the baseball games. Like, I want fans back in the stands. Like, I know for the Phillies, because that's really the team that I've been watching a lot of. Like, there's people in the parking lot that are social distancing, but watching the game from the parking lot. Like, why not just let in a limited capacity of people? Like, I know that we're at a certain time where it's like everybody's scared of it, but like you have people flying, like you have things opening up, like have them, have temperature checks. Like at my school, they have like an infrared sensor where you walk up and it takes your temperature. Like they could easily install some of this stuff in the stadiums that has like temperature checks, require masks, social distance, so people don't sit next to each other. Like you can make this work. So like, just I want to get back to normalcy with this. That's where I'm at right now with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, we can put our hopes in what we'd like to see out there, and we'll just continue reporting on the efforts going forward or lack thereof. That's all we can do on our end. But let me,
I'll be the one to vote that I want fans back in the stands. Like I just think it adds a dynamic to the game. Like I don't know. I'm tired of seeing cardboard cutouts.
Here's what I want to point out too is the NBA came out with a plan, and they said, "Here's the plan, and here's how we're going to execute it." Right. So they had it in the bubble. So I mean, obviously, by doing your games in a bubble, there are things you can and cannot control. So like having the virtual fans in the bubble, that was easy. You and I ragged on the idea, but it actually turned out pretty well with having these monitors around with virtual fans. Cool. Then I thought to myself, if they were going to attempt to play in their home arenas, right? Most arenas for basketball fans seat about 15 to 20,000 people tops, right?
Correct.
And they were trying to wrap their mind around how do they do that if possible. You've got football stadiums in the NFL that seat 82,500. If they couldn't figure it out how to do it with 20,000 people, what makes you think you're going to figure out a virtual concept for 85,000 people?
I mean,
yeah.
Some of the stuff that they have, like as far as like guidelines and projected, like, hey, we could do this. It makes sense, and it might kind of work. I don't know. There's something about football and having fans there that adds an extra dynamic to it. Like I know we said the same thing about the other sports.
Every sport is like that.
Football is something different. Like. I don't want to see
a whole other beast.
I don't want to see cardboard cutouts in the stands. Like, I don't know. I'm tired of the cardboard cutouts. Like, they were cool for the first like week, and it was like cool how some of the players were like messing around with them and like interacting with the cardboard cutouts. But now it's like, all right, this novel idea is done. I'm over it. So
the NFL really wants to have fans in the stand. But
more and more the way
things are going, if I were to tell you right now, are they going to have fans in the stands? I might say possibly later in the season. I can't even see, as things are right now with the current climate, in more ways than one, how you're going to have fans in the stands on opening day.
Yeah, definitely not by opening day, but I'm hoping by like October, November. Yeah. Definitely by the playoffs. I think they will have fans, at least to a limited capacity in the stands.
Now, I have another concern as far as that, and we'll talk about it in the future. But I wanted to pick your brain on this. It was an article I was reading earlier today. So, let's say there are predictions out there, and we don't know with this whole thing with COVID. That said, if they can't get it under control now, once we get into colder weather, COVID along with the flu, right, this thing could spiral out of control, right? That's the opinion of some in certain communities. We'll leave that as it is. So let's say we have sports, but it spirals out of control to a point where sports go, guess what? We're not going to be able to bring the fans back, but we're still going to go on with sports. How do you have the Super Bowl with no fans in the stands?
It wouldn't happen.
That's what I want to know. How?
If the NFL had to do it, like if they were forced to, like there's no other option, they would do it, but I could see them doing something of like them setting up 1 million webcams through the seats and having people pay to watch it from those seats. Like I could see something like that.
Buy a virtual ticket. This is your webcam seat number, and
so that
to
you
like
get
have
the
that
idea,
game
like,
day experience.
They get the game day experience. They get to feel like they're at the game. I could see something like that happen. I think if a push were to come to shove and they weren't going to be able to put fans in the stands, at least to a little bit, they would postpone it. They would postpone it, which would be very interesting. But they would postpone it until they could at least get a decent amount of fans in the stands. But I don't see it ever coming to that. I think they will figure out a way to get fans in the stands.
I hope it doesn't come to that, because if it comes to that, then that means we got a bigger problem.
Yeah, this is February of next year when they're already projecting that there will be a vaccine out come January that might slow this or get rid of it altogether. Right. So
I'm just saying. I guess I'm hoping we don't get to that point, because that means something is definitely wrong.
Because they will lose millions and billions of dollars from that. So
let's keep going, man. What else you got?
Yeah. So the Jets are morons. I don't know if that's too early to say. But,
sorry.
I can tell you right now, he didn't make Chips Chumps. Like, there was a lot this week for me to pick from for that, but I'm saying it anyways. So Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator of the Jets, came out, and as we know, Jamal Adams got traded to Seattle, and basically said that he took a shot at Seattle. He didn't really take a shot at Jamal Adams, which was interesting in and of itself, but basically said that he'll get bored with the defense that the Seattle Seahawks runs, because they don't use the same schemes that the Jets use, and it's very bland and not complex.
I love the quote that Williams has in there. Quote, Jamal may get bored there because they don't use their safety type things with all their complexities.
You're just like, I'm reading this and I'm just shaking my head. And like, Pete Carroll responded.
Oh God!
But it was like, really, like, why do you need to say that? It's like you're not even taking a shot at Jamal Adams at this point. Like, I could see if he was saying something to like when I first read that he might get bored. I was like, oh, wait, is he taking a shot at Jamal Adams? And then it was like, no, he's taking a shot at Seattle's defense and how much of a bland team they do, yet they're one of the top defenses in the league every year. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it reminded us all of how inept and dumb the Jets organization is. And Greg Williams is a well-respected defensive coordinator, but
I know who he is. I know who Greg Williams is.
But you just didn't. You're just dumb. Like when the Seahawks play the Jets this year, which I think there is a game for that.
Yes, I believe it's week 14.
Yeah, you're just adding fuel to the fire. Like, that's going to be a great build up to that week. But I don't know. Like, why do you have to say why do people, like coaches, have to say stupid stuff like this? Like,
got to keep it real.
Go out there and play. Like, don't
leave it on the field.
Like, it reminds me of, like, Remember the Titans, where he's like, they make fun of him because he only has like 3 plays, and he's like it's like Novocaine, keep using it and it works. It's like the same thing with this. Like, yeah, you can throw out the same play, but as long as you execute, it doesn't matter.
If the play works, who cares?
Yeah, like if it still does what it's supposed to do. Like, if every a good play, no matter how many times you run it, will work every single time because of the way it's run. And most plays have multiple options. It's not the same play, like, and you do the same direction. Like, if you think of a basketball a play, when they set it up, there's at least 5 or 6 options that you can do within a play. And if it's executed properly, at least one or more of those options are open when it's run properly, which is why when you get a basketball playbook, it's not like an encyclopedia, or like you get a football playbook, it's not an encyclopedia. It's like maybe 30 plays, but with different variations and different personnel. Or in basketball, you might get like 10 or 15 plays, but they each have like 5 or 6 different variations of like you can post up or you can pop it out for a 3, or like someone's coming across the middle and can do a mid-range jumper. Like there's many different things to go into it that gives you the ability to find someone open. So like to say someone's defense is bland, if it works, it works. Who cares?
Exactly.
And the other big news is tight ends are getting paid this week. You know, we keep talking about
they got paid.
talking about there not being money in the NFL, and it's like, well, this person just signed for 5 years for $75 million. This person signed 4 years, $57 million. So George Kittle of the 49ers got a 5-year extension, and Travis Kelce of the Chiefs got a 4-year extension, respectively for those amounts.
Paid.
They got paid. Which
they got paid.
I'll be honest, I don't like, because now the focus is on Zach Ertz and how much is he going to get paid for his next extension.
Oh, geez,
I don't need to hear that. I don't need to hear that. He needs to stay where he's at, do what he needs to do. We can pay him whatever we need to, but right now he needs to focus on football. We don't need about this monetary thing.
Follow the money.
I want to see Zach Ertz be an Eagle for life. I have his jersey. I'm quite content with him being an Eagle for life.
So you are literally invested in him. You bought the jersey. Yes.
Although now they came out with a new thing. I see the commercials for it, that if your player gets traded away, you can like trade in your jersey and get a new jersey, which I thought was really cool.
It's not the same.
I don't know. I have
jersey.
6 or 7 jerseys from when I was a kid that like the players, when I got them, were like great that year, and then after that they did nothing. Like I have a Bobby Hoying jersey, I have a Mike Mamola jersey, I had a Coy Detmer jersey.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, like that. Like they were great when we had them. Like, oh, these guys are gonna be stars, and then it's like they get cut the next year, and I'm like, okay.
Unfortunately, you haven't continued the trend with Ertz, because it sounds like your jersey collection's a curse.
Yeah, it was for a while. It was to the point where I stopped buying jerseys because I was like, every time I buy them, they leave the next year. Because I never wanted to go get that big name. I was always trying to like I didn't want to get like a Deshaun Jackson or a Westbrook or a McNabb jersey, because I was like, yeah, those are obvious and everybody has them. Like I want to get jerseys that like not many people have. Yeah, and then I would get these players, and they would be like, oh, they're gone the next year. So.
Oops.
Yeah, that was fun. But in positive notes, the testing for the NFL for COVID is down to 0.46% positivity for all players, coaches, and staffers. It's a 0.81% for players. And then they began the initial intake process was 1.7, so they're down, which is great. That's awesome. They're I think ahead of what their rates were projected to be, which is like awesome, because now training camps are starting up, and it's like they're kind of almost playing in a bubble, but not really playing in a bubble, but they're staying safe. Like I think they're taking the viewpoint of the MLB and how much of a cluster that is, and not doing the same thing and being smart about it. So that's good to know.
Indeed.
I don't know if you have anything else on the NFL with the COVID testing, but I'm quite happy with their I'm quite happy with the way that whole thing is going.
Things are progressing well.
Yeah. And we can move on to the NBA at that point, because we got a lot to talk about with the NBA. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was hard for me to not like, there were so many. Like when I was going through all the articles for the NBA, like I literally had like 4 pages of articles, and I was like, we can't talk about all this.
Dude,
like,
we could do a 4-hour show
like
just on this.
Like the playoffs are this week. They had finished the playoffs this past week. I think I was so upset over the fact that Phoenix did not get in because of the Bucks and them resting all their players, which allowed Memphis to win. I was like, it would have been so awesome to see Phoenix versus Portland in that play-in game. I really didn't care much. So my buddy told me the stat for them to have gone 8-0 in the beginning. And man, I kind of, again, we were talking about it earlier with a different topic. Hindsight's 2020. I wish I had bet on this. 0.342% that they would have went 8-0 in the playoffs, in the restart. Could you imagine putting like money down on that? Like what
man.
line would have been for it?
Anybody that put that money down on Vegas line banked.
Oh my God, it would have been great. Like the fact that they went 8-0 and didn't make it in was so depressing. I would have been so upset. Like basically say to the league, well, what else do we need to do? Like we went 8-0, we beat all, like it wasn't like they beat scrub teams. They beat like a ton of teams.
What do you want us to do? What more do you want?
Yeah. So, but we got some good matchups. Like there are gonna be some great matchups for the first round. The ones that I picked out, which I think are gonna be awesome, is Jazz versus Nuggets,
Could be
Philly versus Boston,
Mm-hmm.
Thunder versus Rockets, and Lakers versus Portland. So I want to get your take because now that we know
who's in
playoffs, who's in and who's out, who do you think's going to win each matchup in the first round? So we'll start out with the East, and we'll go Bucks Magic.
Bucks Magic. Oh, that's the Bucks all day, baby. The Magic, they've got players that are coming back. They had some players they were without. They did a great job in the bubble. Their team is healthy. But the Bucks, 100% on that one. There's no way the Bucks don't win that. None whatsoever.
Okay.
All right.
Toronto, Brooklyn.
I think Toronto's going to run away with that one. Part of me, though, I don't think it's going to be a 4-0 sweep. I'm thinking 5 games. Like, I think Brooklyn's going to pick one up there someplace. But I think Toronto's just going to dominate these guys.
I'm pleasantly surprised at how Brooklyn has played in the restart.
They've done well.
But I don't think Caris LeVert is enough to overcome the talent that's on the Raptors. And if Siakam decides to show up at the NBA restart because he's been non-existent, then the Raptors can go deep, and I think they'll win in 4. But if Siakam's like averaging like 12 points a game, like he's
been non-existent in the bubble,
non-existent.
and that he's the one thing that if he pops off against Brooklyn, you just stick a fork in it, dude. It's all done.
Sixers Celtics. Now remember, I am a Sixers fan.
I have to give an impartial decision whether it's going to hurt your feelings or not. We tell the truth here. I like the matchup. Let me start there. With the Sixers, you're already missing Ben Simmons. With the Sixers, the question then becomes, which Joel Embiid are you going to get? That's my concern. Boston has a great team. I honestly think, the Sixers are the better team. As long as there's consistency, they can beat the Celtics. But if you have an on again, off again, Joel Embiid, I see the Celtics pulling that one away.
I will put it this way. If we see the Sixers that destroyed the Rockets the other night, they'll beat the Celtics.
Yes.
If we see the Sixers that basically got spanked a few games ago, I forget who they were playing, but they lost by a lot, then they're going to get destroyed by the Celtics. My biggest thing with that is who's going to cover Jason Tatum, because that was Ben Simmons' job. So are you going to put Matisse Thybulle on Tatum and sacrifice his scoring ineptitude? Yeah. So can they do it? Yes. Do I think they're going to do it? No. I think the Celtics win that in 6. Yeah, that's how much faith I have in the Sixers right now.
Right. Let's do the West.
Yep. We still got Heat Pacers.
Yep. So
Heat
Indy
Pacers.
and Miami. Man, I got to tell you that Pacers basketball in the bubble.
It's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be a great matchup. And when you get a 4 or a 5, that's almost a coin toss. But I got to tell you, I like Indy's chances in that first round. So if you look at my picks, I'm basically taking 1 through 4.
Are the Pacers 4? I thought Pacers were 5.
Pacers are 4, Heat's 5.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So I would say, go ahead.
I thought you were going to go with the Heat, so I was going to go outside the mold and go Pacers, but I agree. Pacers, I think, are going to beat the Heat. I just don't think. I think Jimmy Butler is like having a Siakam moment, and just hasn't
Yeah.
shown up. He's got the worst shooting percentage in the entire bubble, and has really done nothing. If he can turn it on and be a playoff Jimmy, then the Pacers really don't have a shot. But he hasn't shown any like progression towards that, or any hint of that. So
for the East, I'm taking, it looks like all the top seeds 1 through 4, but I will say, depending on which Sixers team shows up, I do think the Sixers as a 6 seed can beat the Celtics.
They can make they have the ability to do it if their shooters show up. And that's been their biggest problem, is we don't have consistent shooters. So that'll be the big question mark from that standpoint.
Off to the West.
We'll move on to the West. I'm going to start with the 4-5 matchup and go from there, which is the – actually, I don't have them ranked here, so I don't know which one's
Rockets and OKC.
That's the 4-5? Okay, yeah, Rockets, OKC.
Yep.
Who do you got?
Hey, I'm struggling with this one because, I mean, with Houston, Harden can –
Now, mind you, Rockets will not have Russell Westbrook for the start of the playoffs.
But
so they are down
Westbrook through the bubble, and James Harden. That's all I got to say. Okay.
I'm taking OKC in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, I like OKC because how much can you put on Harden to carry the team through? They already did 8 games through the bubble. Now you're in the playoffs.
I just don't. I can't buy into the Rockets' small man mentality. So
correct.
Yeah. Then we got Nuggets, Jazz.
Well, I mean, we both know how we feel about Denver, but
and I will I'll point out this before you make that pick. I don't know if you're aware, Mike Conley did leave the bubble for the birth of his son, so he's going to miss the first few games of the matchup.
Yes. Yeah. Denver seems like it should be the overwhelming pick, but there's a part of me in there that I'm feeling like an upset from Utah. They've been playing good ball. Something inside of me tells me if there's an upset in the West, that Utah could be that potential over Denver.
Yeah, I'm still going with Denver.
That's fine.
The Jazz without Mike Conley, they have to rely too much on Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and I just don't see that beating Denver. I think if Denver gets, like, you still have Jamal Murray who's still trying to get in shape, and you have Michael Porter and you have Jokic, they should win that matchup.
They should, yes. But I got a feeling that Utah, something inside me tells me that Utah's going to take them the distance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Clippers, Mavericks.
Gotta go with the Clips on this one. For me, that's a non-starter right there. The Clippers are just going to overpower Dallas, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that Dallas will give them a run for their money in each one of the games. Like, it's going to be close, but I still think the Clippers just have too much talent on their team. As painful as it is for me to say that.
Yes.
Then we're going to the Lakers versus Portland.
Okay. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week about what if this happens. Now, I told you I could see Utah upsetting Denver. A 3-6 matchup. Mm-hmm. If Portland beats the Lakers, I don't see that as an upset because of what I saw from the Lakers in the bubble. I don't know. I honestly do not know which Lakers team are we going to get. You've got AD, you've got LeBron, and I mean, look at the roster. Everybody knows the names now. You got Caruso, you got Kuzma, all these guys, right? Mm-hmm. But something in like, I'm not a big Trailblazers fan, you know that. Something tells me, based on what we saw from the Lakers, now maybe it could be we had the discussion, maybe they just shut it off because they knew they were the 1 seed, and the question now becomes, can they turn it back on? If I was to say the upset of upsets, although to me personally I wouldn't really gauge it as an upset, I think Portland can beat the Lakers. I really do. I really think Portland can knock the Lakers off.
So what would you say Portland? You say Portland wins that series?
Yes.
Okay, I agree. Portland in 6.
Portland in 6.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Dame time every game, and he's just going to take over, and he's going to just like. I like the Lakers and the fact that they have LeBron and they have AD, but at the same time they're not playing well at all right now, and I don't see them getting into some type of rhythm, down the stretch or in these games. Like I just don't see it. Like I think LeBron's playing too passive, and LeBron needs to be LeBron and take over the game, and he's not doing that. So you have to think it's LeBron and AD versus everybody because the supporting cast for them is not there. Kuzma has not really shown up for this entire season. He seems lost out there and doesn't really know what his purpose is. So Portland has so many different things they can throw at you. They have Nurkic. They have Whiteside coming off the bench. They have Dame. They have CJ. They have Carmelo Anthony. And then their bench is, I think, a lot more prevalent than the Lakers bench. Their starting 5, I think, as a whole is better than the Lakers starting 5. So I think Portland in 6. I'm rooting for Portland for the reasons that I don't like the Lakers and the fact that I'm a huge Damian Lillard because he's making me a lot of money right now. So
amen, brother. There's always a financial implication.
yes, absolutely. The more I can buy Damian, I think Damian Lillard is going to be our Jokic this year. Just throwing it out there.
I'll take it.
So Giannis is an idiot. Just what he did, I saw what he did and I watched it and I could just see the NBA brass just putting their heads in their hands and going, "What are you doing? You're the face of the franchise of the Bucks. B, you're the face almost of the NBA, and C, what." How are we going to respond to this? And we can't suspend you for multiple games because we're getting into the playoffs now. They suspended him one game, and it was just hilarious that they suspended him one game, the game that he was going to sit anyways and not play. It was kind of we have to suspend you for a game, so it acts like we're reacting to what you're doing, or we can't suspend you for more than one game because you have to actually play in the playoffs for us to sort of make money on advertisement because you're a draw.
Good job.
And they don't it was all right, we're gonna suspend you this one game because we know what you did was wrong, but we really can't do much else. It was what else are they gonna do?
We're not gonna do much else, or we can't do much else.
They can't do.
Yeah,
they can't. They couldn't suspend them for the playoffs. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And why in God's name you turn around and headbutt somebody?
It was stupid. It's just stupid. That's all it was. Stupid. Yeah. I have to. Just because when you look at stats, did you see how much his 1-game suspension will cost him?
I did not.
$178,225.
It's pocket change for him.
Yeah, but I mean, can you imagine that, Chip? You spoke poorly to a customer. I need to fine you $178,000 for the day.
I'd laugh and walk away.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was making the money that he was making, I'd be like, okay, here, let me grade you a check real quick. Just
you know what? Actually, since the money goes to charity anyways, I'm going to double it and just call it even. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, we got some bad news now.
Yeah. Well,
it broke my heart.
It broke your heart. I was kind of but I put it in there because I knew how much you were rooting for him. But since we did say Portland made it as the AC, the Spurs have ended their 22-year playoff streak.
Yes.
So my question for you, do you think the legacy of the Spurs is dead or is it alive still?
Dead? Are you kidding me? Hell no, it ain't dead. It's still alive. Look, you had an off year. You know what? They probably would have done it. Okay. They would have gone to the playoffs again. Unfortunately, they were off a couple of months. Let's put the asterisk next to the record and go because of COVID.
I think now you're just justifying it because
exactly. There we go.
It.
That if you want to talk about a legacy for franchises over sports, man, I'm telling you, this has just been beautiful. for the first time in 22 seasons, they're not going to the NBA playoffs. I mean, 22 seasons, so they didn't make it this year. It is a bummer the streak is over, but can I see them starting a new streak, maybe starting next year? Perhaps. The Western Conference isn't what it's used to be, as far as when the Spurs kind of ran supreme. But what's amusing is look at the Western Conference and all the teams that have tried to get in and didn't make it and got out over 22 seasons. And every year they're like, nope, Spurs are there again. That is an amazing, amazing legacy to leave behind. Do I think it's dead? No.
So I think it's as live as long as Greg Popovich is their coach.
Amen to that, man. And Pop ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. He is still like, so there are certain coaches around the league that have been there for so long that they can basically say and do whatever they want, and people just laugh, or they're like, oh, that's funny, like kind of thing. Like, oh, I can't believe he said that, but it's him. Like Greg Popovich will come out after a game and someone will do something stupid and he'll say like borderline inappropriate remark, and everyone just kind of laughs at it, like, oh, it's just Pop, like it's like, oh, it's not a big deal kind of thing. And that's what I love about him. Like if it was a new coach and he said something like that, it'd be like headline news and everybody would be blowing it up. And it's like,
yeah,
like, oh, did you hear what this guy say? And it's like Pop says it, and it's like he says it in like a joking manner, but he's like serious about it. And it's like,
Pop's
oh, okay,
awesome.
like,
Popovich
we get it.
Awesome. So let me, and I'll tell you this right now. And like you said, as long as Popovich is there, right? Like the dream is still alive, the legacy is still going. Let me tell you something. How many NBA coaches do you know in recent memory that have been with the team for 22 plus seasons?
Not many. I mean, the only coach that's as prominent as Greg Popovich would be Phil Jackson.
Right. But he ain't coaching.
He ain't coaching. No. The only other person was Joe West, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got that. Yeah, Joe West he was there for how many years?
Right. So what I will tell you this with Pop, basically the point that I'm getting at is, like you said, as long as he's there with the Spurs, that legacy keeps going. Pop has coached this team for so long, and and this is the first time in decades that they've missed the playoffs. Popovich will stay there until he goes to the Spurs front office and says, you know what, I think it's time for me to go. He's one of those coaches that has earned that right.
Oh, absolutely.
Spurs will not get rid of him. It's going to be when Pop goes, you know what, it's time to go.
and they will respect that decision, and he'll have his like farewell tour. Like it won't be like all of a sudden like tomorrow he comes out like, oh, I don't feel like coaching. It'll be like, this is my last year.
A lot of hoopla for it. A lot of pomp and circumstance. And mm-hmm. But I am bummed that it's over. But at the same time, it's time to give someone else a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some awards and some like coaching changes that I want to go over real quick and get your thoughts on them. The first thing is the Trailblazers, Damian Lillard won the bubble MVP. Are you in agreement with that, or do you think it should be somebody else?
Dude, the Trailblazers shouldn't have even made the playoffs, and they got there because Dame Time Man carried that team along with the rest of the team. I cannot argue that MVP award for him in the bubble at all,
because it was up between him and Devin Booker.
Yeah.
So you can make an argument for either person.
Yeah.
They went 8-0, and Devin Booker was the like main driving force on that. But Damian Lillard basically scored 51, 61, and 42 points over their final 3 games and averaged 9.6 assists, and basically was just a beast and basically could score from anywhere. He was shooting from Steph Curry range, and it was just ridiculous. Like they were double teaming him, and he was still making it. And like, I don't know, like he averaged 37.6 points over their 8 games. Like that's just insane.
Dude, it was magical to watch. I will tell you that right now. There was some amazing stuff to watch in the bubble. Like this, I got to tell you, this has been some of the best basketball that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, overall. And the Suns coach, Monty Williams, got was unanimous choice for coach of the bubble, which I don't think anybody would argue with that. Going 8-0, that was. So we have Vlade Divac stepped down as the Kings GM. Joe Dumars has assumed the role, which I thought was quite interesting.
How that turns out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to make big of a difference, but yeah, we'll see. And
I think it was a mutual, if I read the article correctly, though, it was more or less like a mutual parting of the ways.
Yeah,
there was no animosity. There wasn't anything like that. It was like, you know what, we all think this is what's best, and that's what we'll do.
I just remember when he got hired, everyone was like, he was a king when he played, and now he's a king in the GM, and he's going to bring us back to the playoffs and bring us back to a championship and blah, 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 blah. And then it just never happened. So.
No, let the example be known. The Knicks brought Phil Jackson into front office management, and what did we get with that?
I mean, it's the Knicks. I mean, let's be honest. What were they going to get with anybody in that position?
All right, you know what?
We all know who you have to get rid of in that organization for you guys to be successful.
Listen, if we can raise enough money with all of our listener base and whatnot, we can all. Well, it'll be like everybody gets a share. We'll buy it. I'll buy it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll take it over.
It's the same thing as like you sent me earlier. Like they're trying to get rid of Dan Snyder at Washington. I don't want them to get rid of Dan Snyder at Washington. I'm quite content with Washington being terrible.
You're beating Washington twice a year.
Exactly, that's 2 easy wins for me. So like I'm completely okay with him staying there.
Broken.
So, the New Orleans Pelicans dismissed head coach Alvin Gentry. I think this was a good move, because they wanted to get somebody in there that they have a young team and they have a lot of talent on that team. And they're going to want somebody in there that can mold all that talent. And I don't see Gentry really doing that. So I think this was more of a testament of let's get rid of the incumbent and get somebody new than it was.
Now a lot of people are kind of ragging on him because of the Pelicans win-loss record. But you can't blame all of it on the coach, because they had some lumpy patches there with injuries. You know, you're supposed to have the next guy up ready to assume the role or whatnot. So I can't say you completely put it on the coach, but that did factor into the decision, obviously.
See, I kind of put it on the coach because his job is to make all the pieces work. And he had a hard time with making the pieces work. Like when you look at their team on paper, they have a super talented team with Ingram, Williamson, Drew Holiday.
Paper, it looks great.
And Ball. So you have Redick down there too. Like you should be able to make it work, and he just couldn't make it work. He reminds me a lot of like Brett Brown. Like you have all this talent on your team, and your job is to make them all mesh well, and you're not making them mesh well, and you look like you have like a deer in headlights most of the time because you don't know what you're doing. So I would be quite happy. And I'm a huge Zion Williamson fan, so I'll be quite happy to get them a coach who has experience with coaching up their players.
Right, and another one that we got there was the Bulls fired head coach Jim Boylen after 2 seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, surprised?
No, I think the Bulls at this point are just they're throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. He was 39-84. I mean that's terrible. So yeah, you're not going to keep your job when you have a .317 win percentage. That's just
and obviously being the Bulls, anybody that goes there, you know what the expectation is when you take that job.
Obviously. So it's the same thing as like the biggest coaching change this season was the Cavaliers when they went on the hiatus and they got rid of Beeline that was, I thought, was interesting because he went from a prominent college coach and then went to the NBA, and I don't think he could make that transition. There's not a lot of coaches that can make that transition, which is why most college coaches stay where they're at.
It's even like that with college football, and people don't understand. Well, you're still the coach. You're coaching like you don't understand. There's a difference between coaching kids and coaching multi-million-dollar guys. There's a big difference.
And the last thing that I wanted to say on the NBA, I don't know if you saw this, but this was super scary. Like, it took me, I had to watch it like 6 or 7 times to figure out what actually had happened. But Derek Jones Jr. was coming off of a screen and he got hit in the neck area and went down like that, like with, and it like super quick and was not moving. They had to stretcher him out and rush him to the hospital. Everything checked out great. He was in a lot of hands, but he could move his hands and his feet, but everything was just like it was almost like a stinger. And he got hit in a certain spot that like wrecked his nerves in his spine. And it was like shooting pain, and he was in a lot of pain and numbness, and basically his entire nervous system kind of just like fired at once. Very rare kind of thing to happen, especially in basketball, but he just got hit in the wrong spot.
Scary nonetheless.
Yeah, but it's good. Like at first, like it was so like nonchalant that the announcers, when they did it, didn't even realize it until he was laying on the court and wasn't getting up, and his teammates came over to try to help him up, and he wasn't moving. And right then they like motioned to the staff, and they motioned to like the stretcher to get him in a stretcher and all that kind of stuff. Because like when you look at the hit, it doesn't look bad, but it was just it was
in the right spot, so to speak.
Yeah, it was like you could have tried that like 50 times and it would not have happened, and it just happened that one time.
Right.
Which was super scary, but I'm glad to see that he is doing okay. And he has movement and the pain has gone away. He's just a little sore. I mean, for obvious reasons, but that's awesome. He should hopefully be back with the team, I guess. If they go farther into the playoffs, he'll be there. But you don't want to see that kind of stuff happen.
I'm going to see it in any sport, and we're glad he's all right, and we wish him the best, and we can't wait to see you in the competition. It's going to be great. So we wish you well, a speedy recovery.
All right, so moving on to baseball. Don, your Yankees, it's like every day I hear somebody getting injured. I'm almost thinking that they're like a Philadelphia team at this point. It's kind of incredulous.
I think you
Aaron Judge,
when you brought it up last week, when you were like, "Hey man, as long as they stay healthy, you cursed me." That's what you did.
I guess I don't know. Like like what? Stanton went down this week. Aaron Judge went down this week, and then today LeMahieu went down.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
every day I turn it on, and it's like another Yankee goes on the DL. They're calling someone else up. I'm like, what the heck is going on? What are they eating up there? Like, are they just trying so hard that they're like straining muscles and everything? Like, I was like, man.
When I checked the news today, I won't tell you what my answer is, or what my response was, but it was more or less like, "Oh, here we go again."
I'm like, man, like I almost feel like they are a Philadelphia team. Like every time, like a Philadelphia team, like, oh, we have great hopes, like this is going to happen, and then it's like somebody gets hurt, and it's like, oh, well, that's the end of the season.
I remember last baseball season, I'm like, hey man, you know that the Phillies might have a good run at it. Let's see what happens. In like 20 games into the season, you're like, yeah, we suck, dude. It's done.
Yeah. I mean, like this week we played better. We're starting to play better. Bryce Harper is just destroying it. He's batting like 360 right now. So we're doing pretty well. We're coming up out of the bottom of our division, which is good. We just swept the Mets today, so I'm
what was it like
to see it.
What was it like down there in the barrel? I'm curious.
I didn't watch a lot of the end of the games. Let's needless to say, like it got to like the 6th inning, and our bullpen was in, and they were giving up like 2-run innings, and I was like, well, and then I would turn it off. So, yeah, that was basically how it went.
Awesome.
So like I'm feeling for you. I want to put this in here because I was feeling for you. I was like, they got to be the most injured team at this point.
You are not feeling for me because on the inside you're like, that'll fix them.
I'm like looking at the schedule. I'm like, well, when do we play them?
So when do you play us? Probably when everybody's healthy again. Just your
exactly.
Luck. Your luck.
My luck. That would be the Phillies' luck. I know we don't play you for the next couple of weeks because we have an easy week this week, and then we have a 3-game set against the Nationals, a 4-game set against the Braves, and then a 3-game set or a 3 set against the Nationals. So yeah, there's
And
that.
how do you feel your chances are right now?
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. Okay.
That's the word. That's the word of the season is cautiously optimistic.
Right, then it can't come back and haunt you, right? You'd be like, "Oh, I was a little bit indecisive with that decision." You can't blame you for that.
Exactly. I'm being safe.
Let's talk about the Cards, man.
Yeah, like we didn't really harp on this the way we harped on the Marlins. I think it was because the Marlins was just a bigger story because it was like literally the first weekend. So the Cardinals,
Yeah, because they screwed everybody.
Yeah, the Cardinals have been off because they pulled a Miami and had like a bunch of COVID tests that were positive, so they've been canceling games left and right. So they're trying to make up for the previously postponed games, and they're going to play a ton of double headers against teams. So
they got a way to go.
August 17th, 19th, September 5th, August 27th, September 18th, September 8th. So that's like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doubleheaders, 7 doubleheaders. That they're going to be ended up playing. At this point, they're making they're going to have to go by win percentage. There's no way that they're going to fit in 60 games.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling it's going to get to that point later in the season that like they're going to have these games that are getting postponed, and it's like, well, we can't fit all these games in time, so we're going to just do it based off of win percentage.
If you do that, I don't know percentage, man, whoo, baby, they looking pretty.
I know. I don't know whether I agree or disagree with that. Currently, where our team's at. So if I get into the playoffs, I'll be okay with it. If I don't get in the playoffs, I'll be like, no, I want to play more games.
So let's talk about, because we have it here in the notes, where do we stand right now, right? And we've talked about some of the surprises of the season already. So let me get this started for you, okay? I'm looking online right now at the regular season standings. I don't know if the games today were included or not. So, like you said, what will happen is if they can't finish these games, they're gonna have to go by win percentage, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were to talk about, but basically the way it would work is your 3 division winners and 5 wild cards, because you're going to have 8 teams from each side in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for your standings right now for the American League, and I'll go top to bottom through the 8, you've got Oakland, you've got New York Yankees, you've got the Minnesota Twins, you've got Tampa Bay, Cleveland, believe it or not, Baltimore, Houston, and the Chicago White Sox. That is your American League playoff teams if the playoffs were to start today.
Mm-hmm.
Houston just a couple of days ago was not on that list. So yeah, Houston's 11 and 10 right now.
They jumped up there today because the Rangers lost.
Gotcha. So now let's look at the National League, because I find the matchups here interesting, and there's one you're probably going to chuckle when you hear it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the Dodgers, the Cubs, Colorado Rockies, Miami Marlins, Atlanta Braves, Arizona Diamondbacks, Milwaukee Bucks. Excuse me, Bucks.
Brewers.
See what I'm doing? The Brewers, the Brew Crew, and I believe St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So
St. Louis at 4-4.
At 4-4, but a 500 win percentage gives them better than the 11-12 San Diego Padres at 478. And right behind the Padres at 471 are your Phillies hoping to knock the door in.
Yep, 8-9.
Yep. So that's what we got. So can you imagine just a couple of scenarios here where they can't finish the games, as long as they can win games that they're playing now, even though Miami messed it up for everybody, and then the Cards got the raw end of the deal, these 2 teams are in the playoffs.
They expanded the playoffs, which I wholeheartedly agree with, but you're going to get some bad teams in there, and then we all know how playoff baseball works. Like,
yep. I'm telling you, man.
All it takes is for you to get in, and you can go on a run.
Somebody catches fire, and we talked about it at the beginning of the shortened season, where we said with more playoff teams in there, you could get that team that is perennial bad but catches fire going into the playoffs.
So I think we can all collectively agree that the biggest surprise is the Marlins winning the NL East right now. That's a surprise. The
Yes.
Rockies would be my surprise at how well they were playing so far. Now they've hit a rough patch the last few days, but they were at the top of the division for a while over the Dodgers. That would be my big surprise of the season so far, would be how well the Colorado Rockies, as well as the White Sox. The White Sox are surprisingly good, I guess you could put.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I didn't expect that. We pretty much predicted the other ones. Oakland, I think we collectively predicted was gonna be really good this year.
Yeah, and the Yankees, and I went out on a limb and said Tampa Bay should be in there, and they're fighting for it right now. They're fourth.
Yeah, I forget who we said for the AL Central. I think we said
we talked about Cleveland too because of their pitching.
Yeah.
So that's not a surprise. So I think the other surprise for me right now in that top 8 is Baltimore.
See, I don't see Baltimore or Miami staying in there much longer. I think the fact that they haven't played that many games, I think they're gonna start. Yeah, they're gonna start sliding down as they start playing more teams. I think it's just because of the win percentage. Like Miami's 9-6 right now, and they've lost like 5 games in a row. So like Baltimore was up there. They had like 12. They were like 12-6, and then they lost 3 games. Like,
I mean, obviously
it's starting to come down to earth.
Obviously, it's impossible to tell right now, you know, based on the preliminaries. But I mean, more or less, we're about 20% about a third, about 34% through the season. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a snapshot just to see like where are we at, where were we right, and what has caught us surprisingly so far. So for the most part, I think if we go back and listen to the show from a couple weeks ago, for the most part, we seem to be on track. It's going to be the surprises, I think, where we're just going to go, wow, that came out of nowhere. Honestly.
Yeah. And it's going to come down to who can finish all their games and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. We're only like a small percentage into it. So we'll keep you guys updated throughout and go from there. But we're going to move on to the NHL. And
good stuff.
I have to say the playoffs have been absolutely insane. It got kicked off with a 5 overtime thriller, which was I caught it. I think I caught it in the 4th overtime and went, wait, what is going on? Because the way the NHL does it, they do it weird. Because during the season, they have a different overtime structure than they do in the playoffs.
Yes.
So, like, during the season, they have a 5-minute overtime of 3-on-3 hockey, and then they have a shootout afterwards. But in the playoffs, they go back to the old format where it's 5-on-5 hockey, 20-minute periods, and they keep playing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is where it counts, man. Because we've had a lot of OT games over the it was 5 OTs, and they had to postpone the Boston Carolina game till 11 a.m. the next day. Because they couldn't play it because they couldn't get the ice and everything ready. By the time they did that, it would have been like 12:30 at night.
It broke your heart, didn't it, to see a Boston game get postponed?
No, not really. But my question for you is: Do you think that they should get rid of that structure and go back to what it is in the regular season, where it's the 5-minute overtime and then shootout?
No, this is the playoffs. That to do like a 5-minute overtime and then a shootout, I think would ruin that. It's the playoffs. It's a different level. You fought to get there, you know, like play hockey. I remember quite a few decades back when I sat through, for me, what was one of the longest overtime games ever in hockey in the playoffs. And I think that was like 4 overtimes. And, you know, it's one of those where like, geez, man, I got to get to bed, but I can't not watch the game. Then I dozed off and woke up and the game was still going on. And I'm like, are they going to finish this? You know?
Yeah.
I think it adds it adds like a mystique to it, like, okay, let's see Tampa Bay against Columbus, 5 overtimes. How tired are these guys going to be for the next game? How hungry are you for it? Okay, sleep on it, hopefully really well. Because going to a shootout, if you're having an off night and honor an off, that's one thing. You got a whole bunch of those games and you're fighting for they rank them in points for your placement in your division. Overtime's a different animal. I don't see why I would go back and do like a 5-minute with a shootout. It's something about it I don't like it. Like, play the overtime.
Yeah,
Finish.
I don't like how they changed it to begin with. I think the 3-on-3 5-minute overtime is cool. I'm not a big fan of having a shootout every single time. I think shootouts should be once in a blue moon kind of thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of how tired they would be, so here's this, like, I don't know if you've looked at the standings or anything like that, but there's some very big surprises. I think the biggest surprise is that the Capitals are losing 3-0 to the Islanders.
I'm not crying.
I'm not either.
I'm not crying, believe me.
No. Other than that, the other big thing is Dallas is tied 2-2 with Calgary. Everything else is the top seed winning. Mm-hmm. Except for the Blues are losing 2-0 to Vancouver. And we'll see how the Flyers do tonight. They're tied 1-1 in their series. And I do not know what the score is right now, and it's killing me. So
I'm going to leak this out to you. The score is 0-0.
I hate you.
That just means you're not missing anything. There's nobody's
yeah, but now it really wants me to turn on the game and start watching it. But we're gonna stay focused. Yes. What do you think of how the games have gone, and what is your biggest takeaway so far?
Well, aside from being exhausted from a 5 overtime game, I like it that when we talked about the playoffs and how it looks, the matchups look great. Obviously, I don't want to insult any fans out there, being a fan of sports and you have your team you pull for, you have teams that you don't like. The fact that Washington is getting shellacked by the Islanders, that's raising an eyebrow. Washington is a perennial contender. They've got great players out there. I don't know what's happening. The Islanders are a 7th seed, and there's no 6th seed. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So there's no reason that this should be happening at all. Now, to point out, I know one person in particular at our place of employment that's thrilled over this right now. So, I'm happy for him. But that 3-0 lead over Washington, like, did the time off kill Washington's mojo, or what was it? Shoot, nothing.
So I'll tell you, I watched the first game. I haven't watched any of the other games, so I don't really know how it's happened since then. But I watched that first game, and Washington was on a tear, and they were just dominating the Islanders. And then all of a sudden, Andrus Lee, the captain of the Islanders, got into a fight and then scored a goal. And it was like, at the time, it was like a lazy kind of goal that Holtby should have saved, and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where, okay, now they got momentum, and they came back and they scored another one to tie it up. And you could see it's like a boxing match where the guy gets punched once and he's like, okay, he's all right, he's fine. And he got punched again. Now he's starting to reel, and then he gets punched again and he gets knocked out. That was kind of the way it was. It was just like steamrolled and kind of went onto it. And I think they've taken that momentum into each game, and Washington just can't get their footing at this point. So
just kind of they just been, it's done. Is that
it's going to be a major upset. It's going to be a major upset when the Islanders win, because I don't think the Capitals can come back 3-0. And then that's going to be the major upset of the first round, and then it's going to throw everything off. I'm kind of shocked at how Boston has come back and they've actually showed up now. I didn't expect that. I thought Carolina was going to end up beating Boston, but yeah, I don't know.
Not to be. I mean, still, the Boston's got a 2-1 lead in the series. I mean, this can still go either way.
It can go either way. I mean,
we'll
let's
see
be honest.
Boston's next game. If Boston goes up 3-1, you can stick a fork in it, man. It's all done.
Yeah, we all figured that the Vegas Golden Knights were going to come out of the West, and that's kind of what it seems like. I don't see anybody else still beating them. No. But
I mean, they're beating that. They're up 3-0 over Chicago. Although tonight Chicago's winning 2-1 after 2 periods. So that would be an interesting one to catch an update on later.
But
Philadelphia's up 1-0 at 14:39 in the first.
Okay.
I just thought you'd like to know.
You're welcome. You do now. I want to see who scored and I want to watch it. And
you're welcome. Just say thank you.
I'm like jumping for joy. You have no idea. I'm tapping my foot relentlessly right now because I want to go watch the game. So.
Voracek with the goal and Groh with the assist.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, Jake needs to it's funny because when I watch the Flyers and them play, their lines are so evenly stacked that their fourth line is scoring all the points, and it's Drew, who's their big player, their captain, isn't really doing much as far as scoring, but is out there facilitating for everyone else, and it's you don't see the major stars on their team scoring all these goals or carrying the team. You see a lot of their rookies and young guys that are scoring goals and making the difference on their third and fourth lines, which I think is really cool. So it's good to see that their big stars like Jake and if Couturier gets in there and Drew, they start scoring because that's gonna be only bode even better for the Flyers. And Carter Hart, besides the last game where he just got rocked by Montreal, has been playing out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was kind of ironic. He's 21 years old, and it's been 21 years since we had Ron Hextall.
Just saying.
I was just almost like he retired, and then Carter Hart was born, and was you are going to be the Flyers goalie in 21 years. Almost that kind of weird
destiny.
That weird thing in the air kind of happened when he retired, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it's not really like that, but it kind of just got me thinking about that. I was that's
it fills in the
interesting.
storyline. It makes you feel better.
Yeah, it was ooh, this was meant to be kind of thing. But he's just playing out of his mind. He makes saves, and I'm where the hell was he at? He jumps, he's just always in a good position, and he's got just amazing talent. So
we will keep all the folks updated. Obviously, next week I'm sure we're going to have some more surprising news to report with hockey, and we'll see how it goes. So, let's move on to random topics, man. What are we talking about this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really I would say it's random topics, but we always talk about college football, and the college football had a. I know college football had a big week this week, so
in a good way.
So we could talk about the. Well, it depends on how you look at it, but we had You have the Power 5 conferences, which consist of the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the SEC,
ACC.
the ACC, and the Big East.
Big 12.
Big
12
or Big 12, excuse me.
Yes, right.
Two of them have now canceled their fall football.
Yep.
So that's Big Ten, and the Pac-12 have postponed it. The SEC coaches are irked. That's what it says. Are irked by the scheduling that the SEC came out with, because they're doing I think it's an 8-2, where they're going to have two opponents outside of their conference.
The reason they said irked is because they couldn't put the other words in there.
Yeah, because basically it was the upper teams were given priority and favoritism, and the lower teams weren't. And a lot of the coaches were this wasn't fair. This wasn't really done universally across the conference. So there's that. My question for you, and it really goes off of what Clemson's Dabo Swinney said. Do you think that because the Pac-12 and the Big Ten have now canceled their football season and are looking for spring season, do you think that devalues the title of whoever, if they end up playing the season, whoever wins it?
Yeah. The only argument I can make, though, I can make arguments for and against. Fewer teams hurts the value. Depends. If you look at the Power Five in college football and look at the conferences that are traditionally playing for a national title, the SEC is just about always there. The ACC is just about always there. Big 10, Big 12, and Pac 12, it's more or less become like an SEC ACC thing. So it'd be like fewer teams hurts the value. You can make the argument that there's a chance that a lot of those teams wouldn't be competing anyways. And that's not me ragging on them. But if you go back and look at like the past 15 years of college football, it's almost ACC and SEC or SEC and somebody else. It's always somebody in the SEC. So,
yeah, I mean, you can look historically at it.
Yeah, if you look historically at it. And again, that's just the way it pans out. Again, I'm not knocking those colleges. You're called a Power Five conference for a reason. You help dictate the landscape of college football. So in that respect, does it hurt the value? Odds are you're probably looking at an ACC versus an SEC team anyway. So does it hurt the value because you're not playing those other teams regardless? Probably not. You know, if you're to take the assumption that you weren't going to play any of those conferences anyways, then how does that ruin the value? Now, with that being said, you never know. Every year in college football, there's always a couple out there that you're just surprised by that come out of nowhere. So Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, could there have been somebody competing for a title this year? Probably so. So in that regards, you don't have the Big Five as a whole unit. Does that hurt the title? Yes, because you're going to get into the woulda, coulda, shoulda discussion. Well, if my team was there, they were ready to go this year, they could have taken it to, Clemson, or they could have taken it to Alabama. You're not going to know. So I think that does hurt the value because you have to put the asterisks on it. They did not go through the national rankings and the gauntlet like you normally would. And that's the other thing. Even if these teams don't play each other outside of conference, there is polling that is done every week. And the bowl polling and the championship polling and all of that helps determine how good in the poll's opinion. And that's a whole different topic altogether. But there is a chance that these Big 12, Pac-12 schools could be ranked in the top 10, but you're not going to know now.
So do you think that there will now be, because the 2 of the 5 power conferences are going to a spring season, there will be 2 championships?
No, I don't think they're going to do 2 championships, because if you want to talk about hurting the value of the title, now you're really hurting it.
Mm-hmm.
By doing 2 titles. There is 1 title.
So do you think the team that wins it in the fall is therefore the champion regardless of what the spring teams do? Or do you have the team in the fall play the winner of the spring league?
You can't have the team in the fall play the team in the spring, because the team in the fall is going to go, we played our season, right?
Yeah.
Now they're sitting down, they're rested, working out. They've got God knows how many weeks in the spring to follow those teams that are playing spring ball. Well, they're just sitting there being rested. Now the spring ball team, after playing their 10 games, they go, okay, now let's say we play a championship against a team that has been sitting for 3 or 4 months. That's done nothing but analyze us. Is that fair? That team is healthy and ready to go. They're rested. All their players are good. Then you've got the spring players who have gone through a whole gauntlet, beat up, tired, and now you're going to let them play the winner of the fall game? I can't do it.
So you're saying that the team that wins in the fall is the champion?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's a no-win situation for anything. You like
Correct.
if you like, and I think that's why there's been a lot of like uproar from parents of a lot of Big Ten schools that are saying that they want their kids to play, which I think is interesting. As well as Ohio State's Justin Fields, who's the star quarterback, has put a petition in to relaunch the Big Ten season, which we were talking so much about all these players opting out. And now you see these players like that actually want to play, or like, hey, we want to play, like, let us play, which I find that quite interesting that they're now all of a sudden like, hey, we want to play. Like, why are you taking our season away? And I think a lot of it has to do for that national championship is that because it wasn't like when the Pac-12 announced that they were postponing and the Big Ten followed, I think everyone expected it for the other conferences to follow, and the other conferences were like, no, we're just going to continue on.
The other conferences are trying to stick it through, but I more and more as we get closer. I mean, you only got a couple weeks. College football usually kicks off a week or two before NFL. As we get closer to this, they need to make a decision. That part is certain. If you go forward with it to play, man, you better be darn sure. Because you can't go ahead and say you're going to play, and then what if your team has an outbreak where the team can't play and you can't go, well, because of COVID, now I need to reschedule my games or do this or that. You better take that into account. And then with football, how do you make up these games? If you're still trying to do your season, you're trying to tell us that around December, January, you're going to be done because you yield to the NFL. Then you're going to go, hey, well, my team had to make up games, or do you make up those games and go by win percentage? Well, now if you do that, there's another issue with the polling for the teams that are playing, and then you still got all the other teams that weren't playing. You know what I mean? I think don't do it.
I think ultimately you have to either make one decision that everybody's in line with, or nobody. Like you can't have like two of the teams two of the big conferences opt out, and everyone's like, no, we're not. It's either all or nothing. Like,
yeah, you can't have
they all opt out or they all don't.
This is the one time where NCAA leadership and all the different conferences, because all the different conferences, they're all individual governing bodies for their area. This is one time you all have to get on the same page, because you can royally screw this up to where college fans are going to be left with a bad taste in their mouth. And amongst all the sports, I've never seen so much political infight, so to speak, the politics of sports, so to speak, so much infighting between negotiations between conferences and championships and why this should happen. Why should, like, if you don't do this right, and I really see no way to do this right, my suggestion would be just shut it down. That's just the safest way to do it.
Yeah. Do a spring season that starts maybe in January and go from there.
Like we said, how does the spring season, that goes into how does that affect the NFL and the draft?
I think the way that they had it scheduled was that they were going to end it like maybe 2 weeks before the draft, which I think is fine. You do that, and I think I think the NFL could push back the draft a little bit, have the combine. Like, I think you could make it work with everything that's going on. I'd rather them all be on one page than not, like, none of them be on the same page. Like, it's mind-boggling how they're like the NFL. They just can't get it together. And then one last thing I did want to mention, which I thought was really interesting. So the NBA was doing, like, the reason they were able to get their tests so quickly was they were doing what they call a saliva-based test that was developed by Yale, that it's a lower cost for people, but it gives quicker results. And the test was approved by the FDA for the public, and they said it's nearly the same results as the ones where they stick up your nose and they stick it down your throat kind of thing.
A lot of people will be happy with this test then, because I know a lot of people like getting the swab up the nose.
So this is just, they swab your mouth and then they test it, and you're supposed to get the results fairly quickly, within 24 to 48 hours, which now they're like weeks to multiple weeks out. And they want something that's quicker, and this just got approved. So this is going to be something that they're going to roll out. And the NBA is funding it, which I think is really cool.
Thank you, NBA.
Yeah, which is really awesome that they're going to bring this out so that people can get tested and they can know right away, rather than waiting weeks for the swabs to come back. And
now, if you want to talk about giving back to the community, oh man, this one's golden.
Yeah, the NBA is definitely doing it right with that.
Cool, man. Well, there we go. Random topics. And with the random topics being done, y'all know what it's time for, that rough riding part of the show.
It's time for Chip's Chumps. Bad plays, bad players, awful calls, poor sportsmanship. The worst of the week with Chip's Chumps.
All right, guys. It was a very tough week for me this week. Picking out 5 people that I could put on this list because, let's be honest, I went through it and there was probably about 10 or 15. It was a lot of week of a lot of morons and a lot of idiots that were there. But these are I actually have 6 because I couldn't decide on just 5. So these are the, top 6. Number 6. So number 6 goes to Steven Strasburg of the Washington Nationals, who got ejected from a game while sitting in the stands. Okay, you're a major league pitcher. I know you're sitting in the stands because you're trying to add to that fan aspect of it, but this isn't Little League. Like, who gets thrown out of a Major League Baseball game from the stands? First of all, that's just hilarious in and of itself. Second of all, you must have been screaming loud enough that they could hear you very clearly, because I would just been the umpire, just throw you out, just say I threw you out of the stands, because that, like, what are you going to do? You're going to walk up to the clubhouse? Like, I don't know. Like, I can see you getting thrown out from the dugout for arguing balls and strikes, but you're a pitcher. You're not even supposed to be there in the clubhouse watching the game. You're sitting in the stands. Keep your mouth shut. Like, you have no reason to say anything. It's more of a hilarious story than it is actually a chump, but I still putting it in there because it's Steven Strasburg. Moron. Number 5. Number 5 goes to a Cleveland Indian player who, needless to say, was just completely stupid. And, they have all these tests, and you saw what happened with Miami, you saw what happened with St. Louis, and you would think that these players would get it in their heads that they're not supposed to break all these protocols. No, this guy was completely stupid, and went out with one of his friends partying in Chicago after a game into the wee hours of the morning. His teammate that was out partying with him decided he confessed, and they quarantined him and all that stuff. Zach Plesac decided he was going to sneak back into the stadium, traveled with the team, and then never told him that he was out breaking all these protocols until after he flew home with the team. And then they found out because his one teammate ratted him out. Oh my God, you're an idiot. Like, you just saw half of this game get postponed because people were doing stupid stuff like this. He obviously didn't listen to our show and the time that we put Miami on there for five times on Chip's Chumps, but he could have easily been on here multiple times. Like, seriously, like, this is the reason why you players can't be trusted, and the teammates don't trust them. And, like, how could you walk in there and you're jeopardizing the entire season because you wanted to go out and party for an extra few hours? No, quarantine yourself. You're a pitcher. You only pitch every 5th day, and anyway, so what does it matter that you have to be quarantined for 10 days? Like, moron. Number 4. So number 4 goes to another idiot that decided to break protocol. A Seattle Seahawks rookie tried to sneak a woman into the hotel that they're at for training camp. Why? Like, are you that lonely that you can't, like, there are so many other things that you could do to not make yourself lonely. Why the hell do you have to sneak somebody in? You're a rookie, so you shouldn't be doing this stuff anyways. You should shut up and just, play football and, get hazed or whatever that they do in the NFL. And you shouldn't be sneaking a female in there to, do whatever she needs to do. Like, no. Like, they have these protocols so that you don't jeopardize the team, and now you're jeopardizing the team. What happens if the entire Seahawks got COVID because you decided to sneak in a female, and then football all went away? Like, could you imagine the outcry that would have been for that from fans and from the NFL? And Like, this guy would have been blackballed wherever he went. Ridiculous. Needless to say, the Seahawks did release him and got rid of him, so yay. But anyways, moron. Number 3. So number 3, I had to put this on the list. I saw Stephen A's rant about it, and his rant made so much sense that it made me laugh. Michael Irvin, Cowboys former wide receiver, Hall of Famer, unfortunately, put out a quote saying that he compares the Cowboys drafting CeeDee Lamb to Kevin Durant signing with the Warriors. Really? Really? Are you kidding me? First of all, you have to go to a championship before you can actually make that comment. Like, the last time that the Cowboys have made it to a championship was, I don't know, like 20 years. So how can you say that CeeDee Lamb going to him is the same equivalent of Kevin Durant, who is probably a Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer, going to a team that had just lost in a Game 7 of a championship and basically went to an already winning team and they brought in a Hall of Famer? How is that the same as you drafting a rookie wide receiver to a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year? Seriously, like, I know you're an egotistical player and an egotistical man, but man, that's just awful. That is probably one of the dumbest comments that I've ever heard. Moron. Number 2. So I know we mentioned it earlier in the show, but Giannis, what the hell were you doing? Like, you're lucky that they didn't suspend you, that you're such a big star that they didn't suspend you more games. Like, there is no reason. It's the second to last game of the season. Just walk away. There's no reason for you to headbutt another player. First of all, you headbutted a guy who nobody really even knows who he is. Like, he's not a big player. He's not a star. Like, okay, he insulted you, maybe. I don't know what he said, but you got to have tougher skin than that. It's basketball. There's going to be trash talking. There's no reason for you to turn around and headbutt him. Like, you didn't even do it inconspicuously. Like, you did it, like, right in front of the ref. Like, if you're going to do it, like, elbow him or jab him away from the ref when they can't see him. You don't headbutt the guy. The only thing that compares to is when Zidane headbutted the guy in the World Cup finals, and that was even stupid. That was, like, all-time chump level. So Giannis, moron. Number 1. So this story just came out literally like a half hour before we did this show. This is absolutely scary and, like, creepy and ridiculous. So for those who don't know, me and Don are decent wrestling fans. But there was a gentleman that was arrested on kidnapping charges at the home of a WWE superstar. Supposedly for the last 4 years, he's been stalking her on Twitter and online. I don't know if it was exactly Twitter, but it was online, saying that he was going to, it was on social media, that's what they said. He was going to go to the house and hold her hostage and kidnap her and blah, 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 blah. And he was carrying a knife, plastic zip ties, duct tape, and mace and other personal items, and broke into the home and basically had them at knife point. Thank God that someone called the police. You guys can read the article. I'm not going to say the WWE superstar's name, but his name is Phillip A Thomas, is the guy who got arrested. Like, what is wrong with people? Like, I like, this is just so messed up. It's not even funny. Like, to do this to anybody is just messed up. Not necessarily that it's a WWE superstar, but this is just wrong. Like, you've got to have some type of screw loose. Like, it's so messed up. I'm glad they caught him and no one was hurt. Just wow. Moron.
There we go. Chips, chumps. In that last one, it just, again, he gets a distinction of needing a title more than moron. Definitely.
Yeah,
it's just a scary situation. Nobody, regardless of who you are or how popular you are or like the type of athlete that you are, or Chip, if someday you and I, if the show really starts to take off, how popular we become, we're still people, we're still human beings, and we still have a right to privacy.
Yeah, I read that, and like my mouth kept dropping every time. More and more I read about it, and I was like, wow, this is so messed up. Like the fact it wasn't it was planned and it was like a 4-year thing that he did this, like that's scary.
Yeah, it is. This was like definitely a premeditated and planned this out. So I'm just happy that there was good news to the story, that this piece of trash was caught and that those living in the home, everybody was okay. So definitely some good news there. So with that being said, man, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Let's hit the final buzzer.
It's the final buzzer. The last moments of the show.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, you heard it. We are at the final buzzer. A little bit of a longer show, but nonetheless, we hope you're all enjoying and everything that we're bringing to you. And another favorite part of the show, Chip, what's our movie of the week?
So this is by far one of my favorite movies of all time. I love a good underdog story. So I'm going with, maybe it's like a Rocky thing, I think. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going with a Coach Carter, 2005 movie about this fortunate school where they had a really bad basketball team that this coach comes in and basically changes everything and teaches the players about pride and playing for themselves and their teammates and going to college and not just ending up in a gang or anything like that. And it's such a great movie. There was multiple quotes that I could have picked, but there was 2 that I found on. One of which is really cool, and the other one I think is just an amazing quote. So the first quote is between Coach Carter and one of the players. And basically he is in practice and grabs one of the students and he goes, "Teachers aren't supposed to touch students." And he goes, "I'm not a teacher. I'm the new basketball coach," which I thought was really, baller. And then the other quote I really liked was Coach Carter asks, "What is your deepest fear?" And one of the players responds, like he asked that question throughout the entire film. And then eventually one of the players responds and he goes, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." And then there's more to the quote, but it's like a really long paragraph, but that's like the basis of it. And I really like that quote personally. I think that's very powerful quote. So those are 2 great quotes in the movie. And I definitely suggest you guys watch it. Like I said, it's one of my top 5.
Awesome, man. Great movie. Check it out. So before we finish out here, again, we want to say thank you, everybody, for listening. We're enjoying the ride. And off air, Chip and I have been discussing some extra projects that tie into the show, ways to really improve the show. And we're going to keep some things under wraps. Like I said earlier, show number 25, 7 shows from now, we're going to deliver something special and amazing for everybody. So please, let's help get the listenership up there, and we will release more information in the coming weeks. Chip, you got anything else to add?
Nope, just keep up the discussions. I'm really appreciating it. And sorry for the longer show, but I hope you guys enjoyed everything that we talked about, and go Flyers.
Nice touch. All right, everybody. As always, we thank you for listening, and we're out.
You've been listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Your opinion may differ, but that doesn't mean you're right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We hope you were intrigued or at least entertained. You can find the podcast on all the major networks. Find us on Discord and Patreon at Random Chatter. Hook up on the website at randomchatter.com and browse through the merchandise at randomchatter.com/store. We'll see you next time. This is Sportscasters Anonymous. Signing off.